even though we're all at a distance. And I want to start by saying something about history in JCHS, because history is in our humanities department. And the way we think of humanities at JCHS is it's a integration of English and literature and history, but we call it humanities because fundamentally it's the story of human beings. And that's how we think of history. History is the story of human beings. And Judaism, one of Judaism's great contributions to culture and civilization was to imagine that history would come to us through the stories of people. And so tonight we're going to focus on the stories of some people who are instrumental in founding JCHS, which is why we're going to be focused on their reflections on the early days of JCHS. We'll go to the next slide, DJ. So I want to welcome you to JCHS. Next slide. And our historians tonight are Nancy Zimmerman Peckner, founder of the school, Noah Alper, founding president of the board, Jan Riker, founding vice president of the board, and our first director of marketing and communications, Miriam Butemovitz, our inaugural co-chair of the parents organization, and Hope Alper, who was the other co-chair inaugurating our parents organization. And then we also have a special guest coming in toward the end of this evening. And I want us to be able to spend as much time hearing from them as possible. And so I'm going to turn it first to Nancy. Nancy, it's great to see you in Hawaii. And it's so awesome that because of technology, you can be right here with us tonight. And great. And it is great. And I wanted to ask you, what drew you to the idea of starting a community-based Jewish high school in the Bay Area?
It was brought to my attention that many Jewish educational immersion opportunities from youth all the way through adulthood are really going to save the Jewish people for Jewish continuity. And the one missing link that we didn't have in the Bay Area was a Jewish community high school where it could be trans-denominational, where everybody could come and build community and build leadership for the future, especially at the ripe age of teenage years where people are changing and growing into themselves. And there was a need, simple as that.
Wonderful, thank you. And Noah, same question for you. What drew you to starting a community Jewish high school? And I see you have seated with you a member of the 4th graduating class of JCHS. Noah, you are on mute. If you just take yourself off mute.
Okay, there we go. Go Wolves! We had spent the previous year in Israel, and our 2 younger boys were in public school in Jerusalem. And when we came back, I got accosted almost right off the plane by Ms. Peckner here, and with a vision of a community high school. And it was for personal and communal reasons that I got very interested. I had a boy who was going into 6th grade, and I said to Nancy, if we can get this thing going in 4 years, that would be really exciting. And I also felt, like her, that this community was with a sizable Jewish community without a robust Jewish community high school. We had a missing piece. So it was important for someone to help fit in that missing piece. And I guess I got tapped and happily joined up with her to do it.
Wonderful. And now we have on the screen, for those of you who are watching the slides, we have on the screen an early gathering on the original campus of JCHS. And in the back row is Jan Riker. And so Jan, same question for you. What drew you to the idea of starting a community Jewish high school in the Bay Area?
Well, first of all, who can say no to Nancy, even though I didn't know her? That was number one. And I think it was just good timing for me personally to get involved in the Jewish community in San Francisco. I had taken a couple years off when I moved to San Francisco, and I found the idea incredibly compelling. I had my 20-year-old in utero at that point, and I thought, why not? And I just was very compelled by the reasoning and the fact that we didn't have one. I was actually quite shocked coming from the East Coast that we didn't have a community high school.
Mhm. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. Miriam, I'm curious to ask you the same question. What drew you to the idea of a Jewish community high school in the Bay Area?
Well, my two kids, Matthew and Alana, went to Brandeis, and Alana maybe was in 7th grade, maybe she was in 6th grade, and what were we going to do after Brandeis? Jewish education is very important in our family, and it was the desire to build a Jewish community and also have an opportunity for my kids to continue in their Jewish education.
Wonderful, thanks. We've got a slide up now, Miriam, with you and Noah and
Oh yeah,
Nancy
yeah.
and Cheyenne. Yeah, right. One of the trailers out there at Kol Shofar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, those were the days, huh? And Hope, what about you? Same motivations as Noah, or different, or?
So I basically was in the back seat while Noah was doing all the work. And I got involved when the school began because I felt it was really important to organize the parents of these 22 starting freshmen in 2001. And that because we were from, oh, look at that. We were from different regions, the East Bay, the Marin area and San Francisco, and many of us, we knew the parents from our region, but I thought it was important to get to know the parents from all the regions and start building community. And we had a lot of fun those early years. We did cookouts, we did theater parties, we had brunches, and we were just so excited to be starting something and meeting new people. And as we saw our kids meet friends from the other regions, it expanded their world as well.
Now, even until today, one of the most popular clubs at JCHS is the barbecue club. And when I found this picture, I thought this was like the first generation of the barbecue club at JCHS. Noah or Hope, you want to tell us I can see what's being grilled, but what was the purpose of that grilling?
I believe this was, check me if I'm wrong, but we had a kind of a picnic, I think, for it's either prospective students or for actually the first class. I don't remember,
I think it was the getting to know the whole first class up in Marin somewhere.
Right. I think that's what it was. And that chicken looks awfully good.
All right. In fact, DJ, if you go to the next slide, we'll introduce the first class. Right. Right. Wow. And so Jan, could you talk a little bit about what some of the biggest challenges were that the school encountered in its earliest days and overcame them? Maybe you're muted.
So I think, pre-starting and then in the beginning, some of the problems were the same and then there were new problems. But I think the biggest issue is that the community as a whole didn't agree that there needed to be a Jewish community high school. Younger Jews living in the Bay Area, it wasn't part of their fantasy of going to high school, to a Jewish school or to a small school. and we didn't have any history. And we're talking about a Bay Area, very sophisticated Bay Area, very high expectations for their education, and we weren't on the radar. And so both from a funding perspective, funders didn't think we were necessary, and then families weren't willing to take a chance. So we were actually building something from nothing in people's minds, and so we had to create some there, and we were able to do that with the hiring that we did, especially of our amazing faculty, and how we were able to draw them, and leadership. And slowly, but I remember the days of us having parlor meetings, and I see, Noah and Nancy and Brian and Miriam, and like, we would have 2 families show up, maybe one, maybe nobody. And we would have to create something that really wasn't there, and for them to buy in. And thank God, we had those early families that did, which I see many of them here, like the Lermans and the Grossbard family and others, which so nice to see all of you. And from there we built. And when we first moved into our palace, which going from the preschool at Kol Shofar to 22 kids, 23, to this palace that, in a urban neighborhood, that it brought new challenges for us, especially, 18 years ago.
Right. Wow.
17
Thanks.
years ago.
And I'm curious, Nancy, what did you think were some of the biggest challenges you encountered, and how did you overcome them first? Nancy, are you muted? I'm sorry. Yeah, Nancy, are you muted?
Okay, I'm back.
There we go. Yeah, welcome back. So what were the early challenges from your perspective?
I didn't hear the question because I got knocked off of Zoom because we have unstable internet connection. It said.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
just hold there, and I'll ask Noah the question. And
I'm back
I'll
now.
ask. Got it. So the question is, what were the earliest challenges that you encountered, and how did you overcome them in starting the school?
I'd say the earliest encounter was the lack of community support on a financial level. And I think that I overcame that by not taking no for an answer, basically, because I really believed this was what we needed in this community. So perseverance, persistence, and keeping your eye on the prize, honestly.
Well, you were clearly really effective at accomplishing that, as you'll see from the next slide, which is also from the first graduation. Just the joy and the breadth of community represented just in this single slide. A number of people in this slide are still involved in the school actively, and this is from the first graduation, and it really tells a story of just how much you overcame to bring this kind of spirit and energy to a graduation. Yeah, you can move in closer to see and look at the pictures of people.
My dad there, it's so beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So, Noah, from your perspective, what were some of the biggest challenges early on?
All of the above. What comes to mind is being at a parlor meeting at the beginning and talking to parents, and we don't actually have a location, nor do we have a head of school, and we're not totally positive about how many kids are going to be there, but it's going to be a fabulous school, trust me. I think was kind of how we proceeded. We did have, in the form of Karen Keshet, well, that wasn't too far into it. We fortunately got a big infusion to help us get going. But I think that what's been said before, the community, someone put it this way, many people that are in the Bay Area have left their Tallases in Cleveland and their tefillin in Denver, and then they got out here. And so metaphorically, you know, it's a big Jewish community, but Jewish education, let's say, is not on the top of their priority list. And also, as Jan said, this area is very high achieving. They wanted to make sure these kids were going to get into top schools, etc. So it was a heavy lift on many fronts, and I think it took, you know, blind stubbornness and tenacity on the part of all of us, and a belief that this could happen for it to succeed.
And so Miriam, I'm curious, how did you persuade your kids to go to JCHS?
I didn't give my kids a choice.
Okay.
They were just going. They did not go around and look at different high schools. This is just what they were doing. And they saw that I got involved early on, and I guess they just accepted it. I hope. And I think that they're grateful that they went, and the amount of wonderful relationships that they've developed there, and, you know, the fabulous education that they have had, and Jewish education, you know, it's, I think they appreciate it. And mainly the friendships that they have, and they're still friends with their classmates. And anyway, I didn't give them a choice. Jerry and I didn't give them a choice. Maybe that's dogmatic, but you know, that's it.
Got it.
You're going.
Yeah.
This is. I'm the parent, and we're the parents, and these are our values. And Jewish education was high up on the list.
Great. Now, Miriam, you were on the original planning committee, and I'm
Right.
curious. What do you think everybody in that original planning committee had in common?
That they had in common.
Yeah, because they were different. They were Jewishly different in so many ways, right? What did they have in common?
Well, San Francisco is just, you know, there just wasn't any Yiddishkeit here, and the need for more Jewish education, and the way to build a Jewish community is being educated Jewishly. And I think that's what they all felt. Even if they didn't have kids going to the school, they knew that in order for the Jewish community to continue, they had to be educated Jews, literate Jews.
Great, thank you. And because this is about history, I want to make a correction of history and turn a question over to Hope, because Hope, you actually started the parent organization solo, and Miriam came on, she was on the organizing committee for the whole school. She came on a little bit later into the leadership of the parent organization and was president in year 4 of the parent organization, as I understand. So I just want to make that historical correction. So Hope, I'm curious from you, how was it getting parents engaged early on in the school? Was that an easy thing to do once they were committed to the school? Was it challenging? What did they enjoy most about getting together?
It was pretty easy because everybody was so excited that it was actually happening, and that we had 22 sets of parents that were enthusiastic and open and you know, ready to go. And we did fun things, like I said previously. We did the barbecue, we did parent cocktail parties, we did theater parties, and I think people just enjoyed meeting people that they would never have known before. And then as we saw our kids making friendships, that made us feel even more excited about the school.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm now curious to hear, Jan, what are you most proud of in terms of your own personal engagement with the school, and most proud of in terms of what the school has been able to accomplish?
Honestly, I felt after we started the school and we knew we made it and we're going to make it, even though it's every year we have to think about that still, right? Because it's, you know, a struggle financially always to keep any school going. For me, I just felt like I could do nothing else in my life again in a professional or community way that would bring me as much pride as being part of founding this school. And that's because of the people that we were able to hire in the beginning, many of who are still there, and the quality of the community. So, and it's not just the education, it's the community, it's the belonging part. As you talk about belonging as part of the title tonight. Though, you know, obviously there are students that haven't felt they've belonged, as you'll have in any school. But I think what we have helped to create, and you and other leaders have continued, is a pillar, if not, you know, the top pillar in our community. And when I got involved, I wasn't getting involved for my own children, really. It was too far away. I had a 4.5-year-old and a 30-week-old inside me.
Wow.
And so it just wasn't really, I just wasn't thinking of it that way. And to think of, you know, being now an alumni parent of 2 kids and seeing how the school transformed them as people, especially my oldest, has been incredible. And I think so many people have that same story.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. And Nancy, what are you most proud of for your own individual engagement with the school, and proud of on account of what the school has accomplished? But maybe we've lost you again, so I'll turn that question over to Noah. Proud of as an individual and for the community.
Yeah, on
Hi. Oh, I'm back. Sorry, froze up there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
No
Noah.
worries.
Well, on a really personal level, my middle son David at the beginning did not want to go to the school, and I had, like Miriam, intended that he would wind up there, and just assumed that. But pretty shortly into it, he announced that he wanted to go to Berkeley High, and he dug his heels in. And I had to make an executive parent decision that, in fact, he was going to go to the school. So it was kind of a rough year in an inverse way, because we got intel from others that he was really enjoying himself. But as a 14-year-old, he had to pretend that he was having a horrible, miserable time. And so when he was home, he was miserable. And when he was at school, he was happy. And we had to kind of traverse that, that issue. But I was very, very proud in, you know, just being around the Bay Area, and from time to time coming across young people who have either gone to the school or who know people who have gone to the school. It's always, oh, JCHS, yeah. And I'm always sort of shocked, like, oh, you've heard of it? Yeah, sure, you know, sure I've heard of it. And so we went from really being, you know, unknown to being, you know, as Ray Edelman pointed out, for many kids now, it's a school of choice. And I thought that was just, you know, from where we started, just an amazing, amazing leap. and to be educating the next crop of Jewish leaders that have been convinced that every Jew these days is a Jew by choice, and without any kind of foundational education, it's going to be a tough choice to remain Jewish. I think we've done an amazing job putting through. How many students, Howard, have we put through this school now?
We'll have 557 alumni.
557 alumni.
Yeah.
I get teary. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
amazing.
And in fact, a number of you have talked about the Jewish connection. So I picked out this photo just because it has two students who went on to get smicha. And so this photo includes two rebbeim who came out of JCHS. And I'll send Laffy Taffy to anybody who can identify the two, other than Julie Bolchek, who I know knows the answer to the question. And Nancy, so back to you. What are you most proud of in terms of your individual engagement and most proud of in terms of the school?
I'm most proud of both, that there is a community now, that the community stepped up, the Bay Area community stepped up, and I'm proud that there's a place for adolescent Jewish students to go and be part of something bigger than themselves and understand the importance of identity and how that will serve them going forward into the future. And I'm just proud of us for all persevering and not giving up, and really it was such a team effort, and then and now, and will continue to be. And if nothing else, there were just so many great lessons for all of us. I'll never be the same. I really, honestly, it changed my life, starting the school, and on so many levels. And I hope that will also be translated to the students in their futures as well.
Great, thank you. Well, certainly you changed the lives of not just students, but of a whole community of professionals, educators, staff members, and we're focusing tonight in the photos on you all and on the students, but you've transformed a whole community because of what you accomplished, and because of your tenacity and determination and your vision to make as inclusive a community as possible. Miriam, what are you most proud of?
Actually, I'm very proud that the school has become as big as it is, or it's a school of choice for people, and children, kids want to go there, and I'm proud of the faculty. I think the faculty is like tremendous. The idea to bring in top-notch educators right from the beginning, no matter what the cost, I think that set the foundation for the school. Not only were they good educators, but they were just good people, and they were also into building the school, and together with the parents and the kids. So I'm very proud of the faculty. I mean, we bump into them every once in a while. It's like, oh wow, hi, we're like family. So.
And I know that professional development is important to your family, for our educators. I just want to share one quick story about a debate I observed between two faculty members. One taught in the arts department and was raised Episcopalian, and the other was raised as a Jew and taught in the science department. And their debate was whether they were Jewish educators. And the person in the arts department said, well, of course we're Jewish educators. We're working in a Jewish school. This person who wasn't even born as a Jew saw herself as a Jewish educator. And the teacher who was born as a Jew said, no, I'm not a Jewish educator. I'm teaching them about science. And both exist at the school. Everybody sees themselves as holding dear a discipline, a way of seeing the world academically, and they hold dear their role and responsibility for raising up and deepening the Jewish identity of kids. Just want to go on to the next slide. There we go. And I'm curious, Hope, what are you most proud of?
Well, first of all, I'll say I'll second everything that everyone has said so far. But I also want to point out, I'm very proud of all the sports teams that have happened at JCHS. Because, you know, the saying like Jews are not good athletes, and I like to come to the plays also. And when I was in the cafeteria and saw all the pennants up there of all the finals or semifinals achieved by many different sports teams, I thought, this is great. And I do hope someday JCHS will build that gym and be able to play on the home court when school resumes again. And I just am proud of everything that everyone has done. All the people who started it, the people who are working there now, all the kids who've gone there, and just bringing this school to life was quite a wonderful achievement.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. I want to reflect for a moment just about where the school has grown to from these earliest days, and we're seeing some of it just in the sizes of the graduating classes, and I can't reflect nearly as well as somebody who's on the call tonight. And hold on, I want to pull up a picture of him first. DJ, we're going to skip right to slide 26. Okay, so in this photo from an early meeting at JCHS, or about JCHS, is a person who looks very much like he is a prospective student for JCHS. But not only was he active on the board and has been active on the board, he continues to stay active. And after serving for nearly a decade as a treasurer of the school, he is now the president of the school, Ray Edelman. So Ray, it's great to welcome you in. And
very bad governance, yeah.
Or very, very wise governance, the way I think about it. I'm curious in hearing about, and you also were part of it, of hearing about the early history of the school and what the ambitions were and the goals were and the dreams were for creating the school. How have you seen that become fully blossomed at the school and still part of what the school is?
So it's interesting because as I reflect on what everybody's talked about before, it's a good thing I didn't know Nancy, because when Noah approached me to get involved in the school, and he straight out asked me if I would be the treasurer 20-something years ago, I said no. So for those who can't say no to Nancy, you can say no to Noah. And yet I thought about it because Leslie and I are both products of day schools back east, and one of the few families who parents themselves actually went to day school. And although my oldest was only 7 and one was still not around of the 5, I looked around and saw who was involved in this school, and it was people like Jeff Halbrecht, a single guy at the time, Steve Gomberg, people who had no family, had no kids certainly, and no immediate need for the high school, and yet saw the need for a day school, a Jewish day school. And as I've seen it blossom in your terms, it's really that the goal of bringing a love of learning and a love of Judaism and tying those two together has really just strengthened over the last 20 years. I had every intention, as I promised my mother-in-law, of moving back east and not being on the West Coast for what is now 27 years. So really didn't expect to utilize a high school, but I saw it as a critical need as an institution for the Bay Area and for the growth of the Jewish community within the Bay Area. As an East Bay community member, I can tell you it has been a vital link, a vital institution for the growth of the East Bay Jewish community.
Wonderful. Now on the screen, you and Leslie, you're president of JCHS. Leslie twice was president of OHDS. But that's not the only contribution that your family made to the community of Jewish education. You are the only family that has graduated 5 children from JCHS, and here they are pictured at Shmoo's graduation. And so thank you for
with
for
a
all
lot of
those.
help from the faculty, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, and several of them actually also helped the faculty, but it was a two-way street with all of them, and it's great to see Michal and David and Shoshana and Abigail and Shmoo, and to know that they were such a big part of JCHS. I know that there's some folks on the meeting with us who also were very involved in the organizing and launching of the school, and so I want to create an opportunity for those who would like to if you raise your hand, DJ will unmute you, and if you want to just stay watching, that's perfectly fine also.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please. I was going to come back to you, but go ahead.
President's privilege, I guess.
Yes, please, of course.
And that is, I just wanted to add on something that both Jan and Nancy and others kind of hit on about what they're most proud of, and that it touched on community. To me, when I look around at Jewish community high schools across the country, and I look at JCHS, I think we do community right. And the way I think of it is that across the spectrum of Jewish observance, of Jewish affiliation, we have a very unique community, Jewish community in the Bay Area, and yet we don't choose to bring them all in and make it a melting pot. We respect and work within each kid, each family's desire for what they want to get out of the high school, and really make it a comfortable place for those kids to come. You know, it's a difficult time, as Noah alluded to. You have teenage kids who are just really getting out on their own and questioning and exploring. And we do community the way it should be done as far as community high schools go. So that's what I'm most proud of, actually.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Ray. And DJ, if you could unmute.
Yeah,
Michelle.
we're going to call on Brian K.
Okay, great. Brian, you're up first.
Oh, thank you. Well, Ray actually really took the words right out of my mouth on articulating how special this is as a community high school that really truly serves the whole breadth and spectrum of our community. But I also want to add how proud I am of our graduates, that we have a number of people, not just the 2 rabbis you referred to, but a number of our students who have professional roles in Jewish communities throughout the country, but also that our graduates are equipped with an education that allows them to make decisions on what kind of Jew they want to be and how they practice Judaism and how their involvement is. And it's based on knowledge and not just on ignorance or what might be the easiest thing to do. And I think that empowerment that the school has given them, and thanks to you, Rabbi Rubin, and our wonderful faculty, has really allowed them to blossom. And I think our entire Jewish community, not only in the Bay Area, but nationwide and internationally, has really benefited from it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for adding that, Brian. And Michelle, you wanted to chime in.
Hi, everybody. It is so nice to see all of you. And I've just, I'm smiling from the inside out. And JCHS was just the most magnificent, amazing place for my children. The kids really are part of history. When I hear Nancy and I hear Noah speaking, and these kids, they are part of a vision for the Jewish community, and to be part of something like that is just so amazing. And then I just have to share that our little Paige, who went through JCHS and was so inspired by her 9th grade physics teacher, and inspired by everything in the school academically, is, thank God, she's going to be starting UCSF med school in the fall. So
Wow.
go JCHS. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm so proud of all that the team did. Nancy, from your initial vision of even thinking about it, inspired, I know, by your grandfather's ethical will, which is just such an incredible Jewish teaching about the importance of an ethical will, and just Noah, and I mean, on, and Jan, and just your perseverance is inspiring. So wonderful to see you all.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing that, Michelle. And we're about at the end of our time tonight. I want to, DJ, if you just take us to the last slide. There we go. So some of you who've been to the Israel Museum in Jerusalem know this sculpture. And this was, I think this was about 7 years ago on our Israel trip. We now have taken more kids to Israel than just about any other high school. And we take our 11th graders there every year. And the statue is iconic in that it, well, okay, it has our kids all over it. That's iconic. But it's also iconic because it spells out the word ahava. And you can't see all the letters in this slide, but it spells out ahava, which means love. And it's so clear that the love that so many of you had for your families, for the Jewish community, for Jewish learning, and for building up the future of Jewish life in the Bay Area and beyond, that love so infused the school and so became a part of the fabric of the school that those early challenges that so many of you have talked about tonight have really been overcome. The early challenges of skepticism and the early challenges of not knowing whether a school could exist and graduate students to go on to selective colleges, universities, or not knowing that it would be able to empower kids to fulfill the passions of their lives, as we just heard from Michelle about Paige. It's just so phenomenal that the love that you all poured into the school is being harvested every day in the lives of our current students, our alumni, and their families. So for that, I want to thank you all for being such a huge part of our school. I want to thank our oral historians tonight for contributing their stories. We started this series, Belonging Together, so that we might be able to reach out to the school community beyond the student body during these days that we're not on Ellis Street. And I just want to thank you all for being such an important part of our community, and look forward to being able to welcome you back to Ellis Street. I'm not sure when, but when we are able to welcome you back, we will welcome you back with open arms and with the same kind of love that you've shown to the school. So have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for what you've done for our school and for giving it such a great foundation as we continue counting beyond 18 years. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Take care. Well.